Okay, so what are the sources of data for all this? Um, every public company, they have special pages for their investors where they have press releases, they have all the financial statements, all the quarterly statements, the annual statements. They're going to have it all compiled in one place. So if you ever wanted to research a company, you can just into Google put the company's name, investor relations. Okay, and that will take you usually straight to the site. It'll be the first link. And on that page, you'll see the annual reports, quarterly reports, press releases, any presentations that the company has put out. The each quarter they also give a conference call where the executives of the business give like an open kind of presentation of the the quarterly results, and there's Q&A so you can listen to that. They usually have an audio recording of that, which is pretty informative, because you can hear the questions that professional analysts are asking management, and hear how they respond. So all that is going to be on the investor relation website. Okay. Um, the government also has a repository where the company has to kind of post all their required filings are on this site called Edgar. Okay, so uh, you can find a lot of information on Edgar, like what managers of the company are either buying or selling stock in the company, right? So if you saw the CEO was selling a lot of stock, that is informative. Why is that informative? Why would you be interested to know whether the CFO or the CEO or some upper management is selling a lot of shares or buying a lot of shares? What information is captured in that? Exactly. Okay. If they're buying a ton of stock, they know more about the company than you. Okay. No matter how good of a financial analyst you are, the CEO, the CFO, the managers of the company that have access to all the financial information, all the deals that they're doing, they're going to know more than you. And so if they're buying a ton of stock, that's usually a sign that something good is happening for the business. If they're selling a lot of shares, it could mean a number of things. Maybe they just they need cash to buy their house in the Hamptons or whatever. It could also mean that they're selling because they are not confident in the company. Okay, so but that information is going to be posted in Edgar. If any insider buys or sells more than a certain number of shares, they have to publicly disclose that. Okay, so you can find that information in Edgar. Um, there's also these third-party data providers. Some of them are very expensive. Capital IQ, FactSet, these are like what professional investment analysts will use. They're really good though. They compile all the financial statements in one place, clickable. They're extremely useful, and time-saving devices. Uh, I think I sent this podcast out of this guy Steven Schwartzman. He's the founder of Blackstone, which is like a large private equity firm. He was saying when he first started out in this investment management business, he would have to read newspapers and take paper documents and compile everything together. And that had its benefit because he knew all the numbers. But this technology, having stuff online and like in a computerized format, it is 100 times faster than it used to be. Okay. And now that's kind of what's happening with AI. Some of the analysis that people are doing that takes some time, now that's way faster. Okay. So, but this is a very, very useful tool if you're doing investment analysis. These Capital IQ, FactSet, um, Bloomberg Terminal, which is the most terrible user interface you'd ever imagine. But it's such an entrenched, like, uh, it has a very entrenched role in the financial services sector, even though it kind of sucks to like use. It's still like one of the big main ones because people just know how to use it, um, if you work in that field. Uh, Yahoo, Google, Finance, Webull, like now there's a lot of free stuff that actually have pretty good tools too. Um, so there's a lot of information there, and then just like other stuff. There's a lot of stuff online that's compiling financial information. Okay. Um, and then there's proprietary data. So this is like consultants or industry publications. These are usually also very expensive. Okay, you have to have a subscription, and it's very useful information. Like the pricing of certain commodities. Like if you wanted to know the price of, like, I don't know, some rare earth metals quarter to quarter, that's not very. It's not available to the general public, but it's going to be in some industry publication. There's someone tracking it and then selling that data. Okay, and then here's some useful codes. A 10K, you'll hear this term a lot, is a company's annual report. And these are all basically tied to this Edgar website. Okay, so all this coding is how the government has called all these different types of documents. So a 10K is an annual report, a 10Q is a quarterly report, an 8K is kind of like a press release. If there's any major event, the business has to disclose it and put it on Edgar as a 8K. So I'll show you Edgar in a second, but if you just search the 8Ks for some business, it will show like all the major events that have taken place. Um, Form 4, this is what I talked about, where if there's a major buying or selling of shares by any insider, so this is officers, directors, or any shareholder that's greater than 10%, they have to kind of disclose any change in their ownership. Um, this is another one that you can get a lot of information. 13D is when an activist investor first takes a stake in a company and it has more than 5%. So a lot of private equity investors, um, if they're going to try to shake up a company and like redo the management and stuff, they're going to first disclose it because they're going to start buying shares in the public markets. Okay. And once they reach 5%, they have to first say, hey, we reached this threshold of 5%. So you, if you're a savvy investor, could search Edgar for 13Ds and see what private equity buyers or what private investors have now a large stake in a company. And if you know anything about them and you're like, oh, these guys are good, they like do good restructuring of businesses, you could pile on. You just buy into that company too, and you wait for them to do the hard work of turning the business around. Okay. Um, and then S1, this is when a company first goes public. This is what we call it an IPO filing, initial public offering. So this is when a company is transitioning from private to public. And so like Uber, when they first went public, no one knew very much about their financial statements. What was their revenue? What were their expenses? And so when they first were going to go public, that S1 filing was really important because that's when they first kind of they opened up their books essentially to the public. Okay, so a lot of companies, like they're saying OpenAI is not going to IPO because their numbers are not that good. Okay, because if they're going to file, they'll have to file an S1 and present their financial statements. Okay, so people are saying that they didn't hit their revenue numbers, their user numbers, all that stuff, and so they're going to postpone their IPO because right now it's opaque. You don't know exactly how much revenue OpenAI is generating. You can guess, you can use some proxies, but you don't actually know, like you do with Google or some other public company that has to file every quarter. Okay, so there's a downside to private companies to IPO in that they have to now disclose their financials. Okay, so let's look at some stuff. I think this is Merck. Merck is a pharmaceutical company. Let's look at their investor relations website. Okay, so this is what it looks like. They have their stock price. You can argue this is their product, their most important product, which is their stock, and they want the scientists maybe not so much, but the managers of the business, they're really focused on this. This is the important number that they're judged by for many companies is just the price of the stock. Okay, so they have news. You can see um, they have some press releases. They have this tab for events and presentations. So again, this is like the webcast. So if you wanted to uh, listen to the CEO and the CFO and their chief research person, uh, they're all speakers in this conference call, and you can hear what they have to say. Usually, they're reading like like prepared stuff, but the Q&A, there's a lot of information where there's like professional analysts who are following these companies who have really detailed questions. So they're asking, and the executives will answer, and that is like not scripted. They don't know the questions ahead of time. So you can see their earnings call. They have some presentations here, and so they're Form 10Q. So they're gonna have their most recent filings. So if we click on this, you can see this is Form 10Q, and it's their quarterly report. Okay, and it's gonna have financial statements. So you can see here are their financial statements, and of course they'll have all this other stuff. So if we look at the table of contents, they have their financial statements. They have like just a discussion where they're writing out kind of in plain English what's going on with the business. They'll have some disclosures, and then just some other stuff. Okay, the annual report is longer. They have many more disclosures and like other stuff they got to put in the annual. The quarterly is a more abbreviated report. So Edgar, you can see it's a government website, which means it's going to be like not the most best. It's not going to be the best UI, you know. But let's see. Let's do. So I just put in Tesla's ticker, TSLA. You can see it came up here. Okay, so you can see there's selected files. The 8K, which is again the kind of press release, like what important things have happened. Earnings release. You can see they have their 10K and their 10Qs. So there's a separate link for that. Um, you can just click on this to view all of them, and it'll just give you a list of all the stuff that they filed by the filing date. Um, so yeah, there is some embedded information in here. Okay, now one of the things with AI that they're saying is going to be great is the AI will just immediately go into here and like read whatever is posted right away and can give you an update and summary. Okay, because as there some of these things are like hundreds of pages long. The annual reports, quarterly reports. So if you can have something that can read it in 10 seconds and then give you a summary and like is kind of trained to know what to look for, then it can save you a lot of time and you can act fast. Because a lot of it is acting quicker than someone else. That's at least in the short term kind of hedge fund world or short term trading, acting fast is a big advantage. For long term investors, maybe not so much. It's better to spend the time to really read these to understand what's going on. Okay, so yeah, if you're interested in financial like investing, I would recommend spend some time with Edgar, go through the filings, see what they're like, um, download some of them and put them into AI and have the AI help you understand what's going on. I think it's the AI is great to help you learn things. If you're just uncritical and just copying and pasting it, I think that's a problem. But as a learning tool, I don't think there's a better one. It's better than me. It's available 24/7, I think I'm pretty good, but the availability is just not there. And the depth of knowledge, it does know more than me. Maybe it's overconfident what it knows. It thinks it knows things that aren't true, but it does know a lot. So I would say try to use it to your advantage to learn yourself. But be skeptical too. Be push back on it because it's not always right. And as soon as you push back, it's like, oh, you're right. So I'm sure you guys have all seen that happen.